Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
We have made it to another weekend. Larry Smith here with Sports IQ, producer Tony, editor Josh. As you know, we will tell you that we are in 3 states. One love, baby. We bring it all together. Another great show here to get into the weekend. We've got, in a couple of minutes, Charlie Baudini is joining us to talk about the New York Giants. And a bit later, Matt Stevens with the Illini guys is going to come on. But not talking to Illini guys. He's really been digging into this new legislation, the NCAA, what they're trying to do, whatever. We're going to get some, he's actually read it. I haven't. Chances are you haven't either. So we'll have that conversation. We'll have more talks about this next week as well. Our friend Victoria Jackson from Arizona State, we've got her coming on. A couple of birthdays to talk about. Carmelo Anthony turning 42 today. Eric Davis, the slugger, former Red Slugger, 64 years old. 6-time NBA All-Star Richie Guerin, 94 years young. Happy birthday, buddy. Faye Vincent, the former baseball commissioner, born on this day in 1938. 1 year later, former race car superstar Al Unser, born on this date in 1939. There you go. Hey, it didn't take long to find out which Victor Wembanyama would show up for Game 6 of the Spurs Thunder series. In the first 127 of the game, he had 2 3-pointers, blocked SGA at the rim, and the Spurs had a 9-2 lead. For the game, the 7-4 star finished with 28 points, 10 boards, and the Spurs have had forced now a deciding Game 7, 118-91 win. That Game 7, Saturday night, Oklahoma City, 8 p.m. Eastern. Get your chips and dip now. It should be a classic. The series has been all about, really, as we talked before, which Wemby do the Spurs get in a given game? In the 3 wins the Spurs have against the Thunder in the series, Wembanyama averaging a double-double, 34 points and 14 boards. In the games the Spurs have lost, the big man in the middle, just 22 points a game, only 9 boards. Now let's give some credit as well to the Spurs bench players for helping force this Game 7. The entire series has been about the Thunder bench, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, Jalen Williams. It's been outstanding for sure. But last night, the Spurs reserves and Dylan Harper stepping up big time. Harper putting on a show, scoring 18 points, 6 rebounds, 4 steals, and he did it in only 22 minutes of playing time. Overall, the Spurs bench outscoring the Thunder reserves 46-38 last night. Well, yesterday we talked to Lo Yarnell of Yahoo Sports with the Women's College World Series starting up. The first 4 games, if they're any indication, we're in for something really special. Last year's winner, Texas, will have to try to repeat coming from the losers bracket. The Longhorns, stunned in Game 2 of the tournament by Tennessee, 6-3. Freshman Elsa Morrison had a 3-run blast in the second for the Lady Vols to get things rolling, and they never looked back. Texas will have to face Mississippi State in the first elimination game of the tournament. The Lady Bulldogs were ruled by a suddenly red-hot Texas Tech team, 8-0 in 5 innings. In the evening game, the number 1 seed Alabama Crimson Tide getting a 3-run blast from Brooke Wells in the 6th inning as they rallied to beat UCLA 6-3. The Crimson Tide prevailed despite Megan Grant clubbing her NCAA record 41st home run of the season to give UCLA the 3-1 lead in the 3rd inning, following a 2-run shot by Riley Slimp of Jocelyn Brisky. Up next for Alabama would be the date with the tournament's darling, Nebraska. The Huskers had to work overtime to get this one. Game-winning home run in the 10th, 5-3 victory over Arkansas Thursday night. Today's games, Mississippi State takes on Texas at 7. UCLA faces Arkansas. The losers of those 2 games will be eliminated. Time now for a moment of awe and the rivalry that defined a decade and lifted the NBA into the stratosphere, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. It began a year earlier in 1979 when Johnson's Michigan State Spartans beat Bird's undefeated Indiana State Sycamores to win the program's first NCAA title. Bird was a senior, but his rights already belonging to the Boston Celtics, who had drafted him 6th overall 1 year prior in 1978. Johnson drafted number 1 overall by the Lakers, who had won a coin flip with Chicago for the top pick in 1979. The two would combine for 8 NBA titles, 6 league MVP awards, and 1 Olympic gold together on the famed 1992 Dream Team in Barcelona. But on this day in 1980, Bird was the man as he outpulled Magic for the NBA Rookie of the Year award, incredibly getting 60 first-place votes to only 3 for Magic, who days earlier had become the first rookie to win Finals MVP honors and leading the Lakers to the NBA title. That's our moment of awe for today.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
We haven't talked this week very much NFL, been kind of tied up with Major League Baseball, WNBA, obviously NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup going on. But let's talk a little NFL right now and go to the Big Apple. Talking about the New York Giants right now. Charlie Beduini with Heavy.com joining us right now. Charlie, good to have you here on the show. Let's talk first about this team right now heading into June. We're a month past the draft. What's the vibe right there right now with the new head coach and all the things happening?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of a palpable buzz in the city right now when it comes to the New York Giants, especially when it comes to, you're talking about the addition of John Harbaugh, an 18-year NFL head coach who has seen some of the most success of any head coach in the past 20 years, not named, Bill Belichick or Mike Tomlin. John Harbaugh is a guy who he's up there in terms of the commanding respect of a locker room he steps into. And I think the Giants haven't had a guy like this at the top of their organization since probably the days of Tom Coughlin. So it's an exciting time to be a New York Giants fan. The team's on the up and up. They have a lot of young talent going into 2026, and there's plenty of reason to be excited.
Yeah. When he left Baltimore, and of course we knew he was going to be you don't, like you said, you don't get a coach like that to add a coach like that to your organization very often. So we knew there'd be a lot of suitors. Can you tell us kind of behind the scenes kind of what went on in terms of the Giants wooing him and showing him this was the place to be for him?
Yeah, I believe the two biggest competitors for landing Harbaugh was it was always going to be the Giants. I believe the Miami Dolphins were a close second there. I know the Giants put the full court press on him from the get-go, almost, I would say, just like even 24 hours after the Ravens let him go. I know Chris Mara was going down to Maryland, flying down there on his jet to talk to him. Joe Shane, who, maybe out of an act of self-preservation, was really trying to make sure he could find a head coach who he could attach to at the hip and, try and turn his tenure around, because I believe his record is like 24, 45, and 1 over the last 4 or 5 years as the GM in New York. So Joe Shane knew if he was going to keep working this job and he wasn't going to lose it and the Maras weren't going to let him go, he had to find someone who he knew he could trust. And Harbaugh was the guy. It was the clear, obvious number one coaching candidate in the cycle this past year. And yeah, the Giants certainly put everything they could into landing him, and they did it.
Yeah, well, they've done that. They're paying a heavy price to get him there. Again, he brings a resume that's very unique in terms of a coach in any sport, any level. There's no question. But they did give him a lot of control, and so we're kind of through the free agent period. We're through the draft right now. Too early to tell. I mean, the true grade report cards will come out, later on. But how has he done so far in terms of reshaping this team into his image and what he would like to see trot out onto the field in September?
Yeah, I think offensively, you've definitely seen a more focus on establishing. John Harbaugh he's a run game first kind of guy. We saw that the last few years with the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, one of the greatest running quarterbacks we've ever seen in the history of the league, going out and getting a Derrick Henry to make sure that that they had that 1-2 punch in the backfield there with him, Jackson, and then of course they had the speedier backs and Keaton Mitchell, and you're kind of seeing that in New York. He's trying to bring that same mentality with him. Over the last few years, Joe Shane, he never really found a lot of long-term solutions on the offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. He had a lot of one-year stopgaps. Greg Van Roten, who, was solid the last 2 years for the Giants, but, he's 36 years old. He's still unsigned right now. You saw the Giants re-sign Jermaine Illuminor, their right tackle in free agency. They gave him a 3-year deal. That was a really key re-signing for them. In the NFL draft, the 10th overall pick on the Miami offensive tackle who's going to play some right guard for them this year. You just see that Harbaugh's really trying to establish that run-first identity, even though you have an exciting second-year quarterback in Jackson Dart, who tantalized last year with his arm. He showed off some really, really good athleticism and arm talent. But it really seems like they're going to try and work this team through the run game, through the offensive line, through that two-headed running back room of Scatabo and Tyrone Tracy. Harbaugh is just a run-first kind of coach, and I think you're going to see that offensively. And then on the defensive side of the ball, losing Dexter Lawrence is always going to be tough. That's say what you will about his recent body of work, but he's a former All-Pro. Still a presence you have to respect on the interior of that defensive line. And you've seen the Giants this offseason kind of go a bit more, where in years past it was Dexter Lawrence and a lot of, meh alongside him. They've got a bit more of a committee approach. They've got DJ Reader now. They have Shelby Harris. I believe they're working out the former Bears defensive tackle Goldman this week. You've seen a lot of veteran additions up front. That's going to make them overall better, but maybe not as talented as when they had a player like Dexter Lawrence on the interior of that defensive line. So I think defensively and offensively, the run game is going to be a major factor. They're going to want to run the football, and they're going to want to stop the run. I think they're going to be a lot better at both of those things this year than they have in years past.
Talking with Charlie Bedwini. He's a contributor with Heavy.com. You mentioned Dexter Lawrence. We were all shocked when that trade went down to Cincinnati. What was your reaction when you got the news that he had been shipped away?
Yeah, frankly, Larry, I always kind of thought from the second the trade request came out, and Lawrence and the Giants have been doing this contract dance, or had been doing that contract dance dating back to last summer. And they gave him that 1-year Band-Aid where it was the incentive-based contract. If you hit this amount of snaps, hit this many sacks, you're going to get this amount of money. And coming into this offseason, it always kind of felt like they were going to extend him to free up some more, some cap space to go out and get some other players. And so, yeah, when Lawrence requested the trade, it just kind of felt like another act of leverage. He was trying to get, hey, I'm an important player here. I need a new contract. Please take care of me. But the Giants, I don't want to say they called his bluff, but they eventually decided in the end, hey, we're getting a first-round pick from the Bengals. This is a top 10 pick in a decently top-heavy draft class. We think this is worth it. I definitely did not hate the trade for the Giants. I mean, you hate losing a player like Lawrence, but an early first-round pick like that is a really hard offer to pass up. So, yeah. And we'll see how Maui Noah, turns out, the Miami offensive lineman they got with that draft pick. But I think, on the surface, a relatively good trade for them.
Yeah, and with the Bengals losing Hendrickson, so they needed some help along their defensive front as well. So good for them. Sure. You talked about Jackson Dart coming on and having a rookie season. I mean, taking the starting job away, and now he is QB1 here in camp and heading into the summer. How did you see him grow in the progression of his rookie season? And even since then, just the brief time he's had under Harbaugh, have you had a chance to see him work out at all and gauge his improvement?
I unfortunately have not. The OTA practices, it could be tough to get some access there, of course.
Exactly. That's why I asked it that way. Exactly.
Right.
I knew the answer probably was no, but just in case. Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, from his media availabilities, it does kind of seem like the offensive coaching staff, the new OC, Brian Callahan, and of course, Harbaugh is going to have some input there as well. Matt Nagy's the OC, Callahan's the quarterback's coach. They're really trying to put an emphasis on him protecting himself this year, which I'm sure every Giants fan has thought about over the last year, ever since he went down with that concussion last year in Chicago, missed those 2 games. It really felt like under Brian Daboll that, not that he didn't care what Dart was doing with his body, but he didn't care that he was putting himself on the line, risking his health, risking, a concussion here and there to make an extra play, to pick up the extra yard or two to get that first down. And it was to the detriment of Dart because, as a young quarterback, the most valuable thing you can get is reps. And he needs every rep he can get to keep growing and prove to be the franchise quarterback that all Giants fans hope he can be. I think this year, they're not going to tell him to stop running the football. I mean, that's one of the things that makes him such an exciting young quarterback is his ability to also, move the ball through the air and with his legs. But I think what you're going to see, especially this upcoming season, he's going to protect himself better. He's going to get down faster. And maybe not try and stick his neck out for an extra yard or two when he's running down the sideline, and he won't get blown up. So we'll see for sure. But no, I think there's plenty of reason to be excited about Dart going into year 2. That's for sure.
Yeah. I just think it's. I think when I think of the Giants watching from the outside, I think of a team that just feels like it's constantly in flux. I mean, since the Eli Manning years, right? I mean, you had Daniel Jones for a while, that didn't work. And so he wasn't the guy. And then you had other quarterbacks come in, DeVito and Wilson. And so it feels like now if you can solidify not only Dart as your quarterback of the future, but the other positions as you talked about, you can begin to build that foundation the way Harbaugh did in Baltimore. And now you can begin to have some, not just success, but some consistent success and actually compete to get into the playoffs and beyond.
Yeah, totally agree. I think even though they won 4 or 5 games last year. I think there's genuine reason to believe that with the same roster, same level of talent, that they can absolutely squeeze out a few wins here and there. I mean, if you look back at the schedule, there was a decent amount of single score games or blown fourth quarter leads that they surrendered. And that's just, I mean, Harbaugh had his fair share of missteps in Baltimore. I just feel like with a new head coach, a new level of respect at the top, there's just going to be a little bit different this year in terms of, how the team operates on a game day, preparation during the week. I think there's plenty of reason to be excited about the Giants. But no, to your point though, the stability of the organization. I mean, when they first fired Brian Dable and announced that they were retaining Joe Schoen, I believe it was the fourth time in the last 5 hires where they fired the head coach, retained the GM, and tried to give the GM a second chance at picking a head coach. Now, of course, there was a pretty large gap there in between of Brian Dable getting fired and John Harbaugh getting hired, where it was kind of like, okay, well, Joe Schoen's going to pick his next head coach, and we're just going to do this all over again with the Giants, with the same way they've been doing it the last few years, dating back to Jerry Reese and Coughlin and Shermer and Joe Judge. Like it just felt like a cycle of just futility, but. It's hard not to feel different with Harbaugh at the helm and clearly being the CEO of the organization and Joe Schoen kind of being his, right-hand man when it comes to the GMing.
I was really impressed with Harbaugh. This is where I was kind of surprised that the Ravens decided to part ways with him. That, everyone said, oh my goodness, here's a Super Bowl contender. And they were like 1-4 start, whatever it was, but still right there in the end. To me, I thought it was a great coaching job with the amount of injuries they had in the first month and to fight through that and still be there in the end. To me, again, you're getting, as for the Giants, getting somebody not only with the pedigree and the history and all that, but show that even now, even in a season like this, season 18, whatever it was, that he had his guys ready at the end and had them right there when they finally were healthy, gather them to make this run. If I'm a Giants fan, I'm excited, if nothing else, that he still shows that kind of umph and competitiveness and the fire that he's going to make sure that you're going to go for the playoffs. Even when everyone else has counted you out, the Ravens were still right there in 2025.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, one kick from I believe it was Tyler Loop, and the Ravens were going to be hosting the Houston Texans in the first round of the playoffs. So it's just it's a game of inches and feet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I've got about a minute left right now. You mentioned in terms of, again, being competitive, the NFC East, how do you see them lining up in that division to try to contend for a title within that group?
I would say they're on the same footing as the Commanders, a similar kind of team with a young, exciting quarterback, although, Jaden Daniels has way more playoff success than Jackson Dart has in their short careers. But, defensively, similar talent level, offensively, about the same as well. I still think the Cowboys and the Eagles are the cream of the crop in the NFC East. It's tough to say, you want to give the edge to the Eagles because, how successful they've been in recent years. But, Dallas always seems to find a way to reload. I think they could compete for a wild card spot. I could see like a 9-8, 8-9 kind of area. But I still think the Eagles and the Cowboys both have a bit of an edge over the Giants, just talent wise.
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it though, 9-8 right now for the Giants fans. I think Giants Nation would take that, right?
Larry, New York football in general would take that, I think.
Exactly. I know you don't really cover the Jets because you're the Giants beat, but very quickly the Jets. Any possibility of they seem like every year they're the punching bag that they go, hey, it's the year JETS, and then nothing happens.
I'm personally a Jets fan, so unfortunately,
okay.
I like the moves they've made this offseason. I think they've got a decent amount of talent in the building. I'm just not 100% sold on the coaching staff just yet. I really want Aaron Glenn to succeed, but it's it's tough to put your faith 100% in it when you have last year. So we're playing it by ear, playing it week by week.
There you go. Okay. Well, hope springs eternal every August. I'm with you. I'm rooting for Aaron Glenn. No question about that. JETS, Jets, all the way. Okay. Well, listen, Charlie, great to talk with you about the Giants. Enjoy the summer, and hopefully once we get into camp, we can pick your brain again as we get ready for the season.
Thanks for having me on, Larry. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Charlie Bedwini joining us right now. Once again, contributor for Heavy.com, talking about the Giants and new head coach, new CEO, new everything, John Harbaugh. It is his show up there, and so we get a chance to see this fall what he's going to do. Okay, we've got much more to come here on the Sports IQ with Larry Smith. Those old golf clubs sitting in your garage right now, there's a good chance they're worth real money. That driver you replaced, those irons you upgraded, even that putter collecting dust.
Golf Roots lets you trade them in for cash or credit toward your next set. And right now, Sports IQ listeners get exclusive offers. Take $20 off any order over $100 with code SIQSALE, or get a 15% bonus on your trade-in value with code SIQ Trade-In. That means the clubs in your garage could be worth even more. Golf Roots is on a mission to make golf more accessible, offering high-quality, pre-owned name brand clubs for every skill level. And if you're just starting out, the Just the Roots starter set is one of the most affordable ways to begin, with full trade-in credit when you're ready to upgrade. So don't let your old gear sit there losing value. Go to golfroots.com and see how you can start or upgrade your golf journey today. Use code SIQSALE for $20 off or SIQ Trade-In for 15% extra when you trade in your old clubs. That's golfroots.com. Golf Roots. Upgrade smarter.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
If you're a diabetic, we have great news. You can end the painful finger sticks with a new CGM. Plus, they may be covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. If you test and inject daily, you may qualify. Call US Med now to learn more.
800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. That's 800-390-5160.
Welcome back here to the show. You know, last season in the WNBA, the players and many coaches were very critical of the officiating of their games, and so were those of us who follow the game as well. I mean, I've talked before that so many times I would see a play, watching closely there in the studio the past couple of years, and would see a play happen, go, oh, okay, that's going to be an and one, and oh, no, it's a play on. Okay, we're not going to call that? Okay, well, she's picking herself up, 3 rows into the crowd, but yeah, play on, why not? Well, Aces head coach Becky Hammon getting fined for agreeing with Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve about the state of officiating during the playoffs. It looks like Ms. Hammonds will be writing another check to the league office after Thursday night's game with the Wings. Dallas overcame a 12-point second quarter deficit to beat the defending champs 95-87. Hey, that's the Aces' second straight loss. Well, Hammond blistered her team's defensive efforts in the second half. Vegas gave up 50 points after halftime. She saved her saltiest comments for the officiating. Here's the quote. Asia Wilson shoots 1 free throw. Kennedy Carter 0. Jackie Young 0. I'm effing tired of that BS. Paraphrasing here. I'm not saying they didn't earn their 22 down there, but when Awak Kuyer shoots more free throws than Asia Wilson and Jackie Young and Kennedy Carter all combined, that's a problem. We're not getting the same whistle. Give me my fine. End quote. So at least she has the checkbook ready. Like she knows it's coming, and she's done this before, so she knows who to fill it out to. Already has it signed, dated, the memo, league fine. Just tell me the amount so I can put a stamp on this bad boy and send this thing off. So there you go. Not happy about the officiating. And listen, they did address this in the offseason. I don't know about you. I have noticed a difference in the way they're officiating, but it's going to take some time to work through that. And listen, now they've got more money for the office party come Christmas, thanks to Becky Hammon, who's really been in the news lately. She talked about Jalen Brunson, no NBA champion is going to be led by a small player, and she kind of doubled down on that. So Becky, who's never shied away from a quote. She's pretty fiery. Also said clearly she's rooting for the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. She was once a Spurs assistant under Greg Popovich, and so that's the reason why. Played in San Antonio during her career when they had a WNBA team years ago. Speaking of salty things, Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian, Texas Tech head man Joey McGuire, They're heating up, and it's not even June yet. Last week, speaking at the Touchdown Club in Houston, Sarkisian was asked about the strength of schedule in the SEC versus other conferences. And his response, quote, "There's a team in our state that plays in another conference that has a schedule that I would argue if I played with our 2s and our 3s, we could go undefeated, and they'll probably make the college football playoff this year," end quote. Well, it seems the Red Raiders, that's who Mr. Sarkisian was referring to, did not take that remark too kindly. The Longhorns and Red Raiders both have Week 1 games scheduled against Texas State and Abilene Christian, respectively. However, McGuire, who's a former Texas high school coach, said he's already spoken to Keith Patterson at Abilene Christian and G.C. Kinney at Texas State, and both are willing to buy out of their games and play each other instead. McGuire said, "We're willing to buy out our contract of ACU," that's again Abilene Christian. "I'm sure because Texas has got a lot of money, they can buy their contract out. But I do know there's a lot of Red Raiders that can help them buy out that contract if they don't want to. And they can come to Lubbock in Week 1 and figure out if these their 2s and 3s can win this conference," end quote. I think the College Football Committee want to keep this exchange in mind when they are seeding for this year's playoffs if both of these teams get that far. Folks, again, it's not even June. Folks getting antsy down there in Texas. Let's start hitting somebody. All right, more to come after this.
We all make more than 35,000 decisions a day. Most are small, but some can be life-changing.
When it comes to taking care of yourself, the most important choices can be hard to make. Like having a tough conversation instead of ignoring a buddy's call.
Or being there for support, not assuming things will just get better. Make the decision to be there for the veterans in your life, for your community, for yourself. Learn more at BeThereForVeterans.com.
We talked a lot about this, the legislation to change college sports, whatever. Listen, it's a 110-page document. We found one person who has at least read 90% of it, if not all of it.
I've read all of it.
You read all of it. Listen.
Yeah.
I don't have sound effects. Get that in. Matt Stevens,
Sure.
who is the Illini Guys football writer and analyst, senior writer for IlliniGuys.com, also contributor to their radio show, The Sports Spectacular, Illini Guys Sports Spectacular. Joining us once again here on the show. We've had him on before. Matt, good to see you. Congratulations, first off, for reading all 110 pages. Give us a quick overview, first off, of what the two senators, bipartisan, one Democratic and one Republican, are trying to accomplish with this.
Well, I think they're trying to do a lot of things to codify exactly what was put in the CSC guidelines a year ago this summer that everybody wanted to talk about. They kind of want to figure out a way to codify it without, having with the Supreme Court basically at the same time, a year before that, saying that there's no antitrust exemption for the NCAA and or college sports. So they're trying to find a niche window that says we can have this antitrust deal without making them employees and without having to have a collective bargaining session, like let's say the MLB is doing right now with its players association.
Right.
As you're reading the reports of that, they're trying to figure out a way to codify President Trump's, presidential order, a lot of those elements to it, without trying to figure out a way to make them employees, and therefore, because we all know that the universities don't want to do that. So they're trying to figure out how to, thread that needle really, really tight. And also you're trying to figure out certain things to essentially that they're trying to do a lot of things that the universities and the athletic directors and the school presidents want, without really having the athletes have representation at the table, full representation at the table. And they're also trying to figure out a way to make it a better fan product, in a sense. And I think they're also trying, as Maria Cantwell has said, they're trying to limit the spending with the two major sports, that being football and men's basketball. However you want to phrase that, they're trying to make it so that $80 million football rosters don't become a thing. Because I think the universities understand, you hear the word unsustainable all the time. I hate that, because if it was unsustainable, we'd already half of the FBS programs in the country would be already bankrupt. It's not unsustainable, but it's not something that they really want to do. So can we limit the spending without having to figure out a way to make the workforce employees? That's the thread they're trying to, the needle they're trying to thread here. And it's interesting. There's a lot in this bill that I think is good, but as any bill, and anybody that covers, and I have a political science degree right over there from Eastern Illinois University, would tell you there's a lot in this bill that I think people would like. There's just a lot of, but there's like two or three, four, five pieces in there that go, there's no way that this can pass because of the pork that you've put in this thing. Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing. If they had gotten specific, the bill would be not 111 pages, but they got real ambitious with this thing. And I think the pork that they put in this thing, there's parts of it that I just don't think either side is going to go for. Not meaning Democrats or Republicans, but I'm talking about university administrations, conference officials, and then the athletes aren't going to go for stuff on the other side. So I think they got too ambitious with this thing, but I think there's parts of it that I think are at least enlightening and somewhat interesting.
Tell us, I mean, obviously we have a time limit here, but give us an example of one of the examples of the pork that's put in that's kind of unnecessary and may eventually lead to its demise.
The media rights pooling thing, because we have, Larry, and I'm not sure you're familiar with this, but we have a Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961. So essentially what the media rights pooling thing, and quickly I'll explain, is that if they can get 75% of the FBS schools to agree to pool all of the media rights together, and like the way the NFL does in the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961, and everybody gets a piece of everybody's media rights, essentially. Like the Big Ten's media rights deal with Fox and with NBC and with CBS would go into this pool, and the SEC's media rights deal with Disney would go into this pool. So Delaware would get a piece, not an equal piece, but a piece of this media rights pool that's all put together, right? So if they can get 75% of the 138 FBS schools to do that, then it works. Here's why the 75% is almost comical. And Ted Cruz has gone on, like, Andy and Ari on 3 and said what they're trying to do is threefold. One, they're trying to basically make sure that the SEC and the Big Ten don't break away from the whole thing, because the 75% is 36 schools. They need 36 schools. They need everybody except for 36 schools.
Okay.
So if you do the math,
the 25% is 36 schools.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So they've done the math where they can get, if they get everybody and Notre Dame to agree to this, the SEC and the Big Ten can say, no, we're not accepting this, and it still passes. It still goes through because it's 75% of FBS schools.
Okay.
That's the way they've done the math.
Yeah.
Notre Dame essentially ends up being the swing vote here, and Pete Vavakwa, I'm sorry, the AD at Notre Dame has said, we're not for this. We're not for media rights pooling. And because they have a sweetheart deal with NBC.
Right.
And so they're not going to do that. And the Big Ten isn't going to do this, even though, Tony Petitti hasn't officially said one way or another what he thinks of this bill. Greg Sankey has in Destin, Florida. I've covered those spring meetings, and he took a day to read it, which good for him. And he said, no. Like media rights pooling, we worked hard for that deal with Disney. And we want to keep it within our 16 schools in the SEC. No kidding. Tony Petitti is going to feel the same way with his 18 schools in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
The funny part about it is that the people that wrote this thing clearly are looking out for like the ACC schools, the Big 12 schools, and all the others. The second fold is that they don't want the Pac-12 demolishing to happen again. Because I do think that it's called the Protect College Sports Act. I joked on Twitter, I don't know what they're protecting from, but what they're protecting in this sense is we want college sports to still be a nationwide endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I don't know whether they are or not. And I would agree. I actually would agree with that. Because if you have the Big Ten putting a slug in the back of the Pac-12's head, essentially now you've taken the West Coast element of college sports and said, as long as there were pieces of it that weren't all that appealing. And I think there are a lot of people, my friend John Wilner, who has covered the Pac-12 and does now for a Substack, would say, no, that's not true. Like there's a whole lot of markets in the Pac-12 that don't have anything to do with Los Angeles, California, that had a lot of impact here. And the third one basically is that the third prong of this is that they absolutely did not want essentially a monopoly of money going to two conferences. And if you look at the people that have kind of been pushing this and writing this up, and the people that were around the big table in the White House that one Friday afternoon, except for Greg Sankey, the Big Ten and the SEC really weren't represented. It was Cody Campbell and guys that are trying to make sure the Super League doesn't happen. And Ted Cruz has gone on multiple platforms already and said, we do not want the Super League to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. But if the Big Ten and the SEC say, look, you've made national legislation that basically points at us and says we're the problem, we're going to go away. And you can figure out what you're going to do with the rest of the 103 FBS schools that you want to pull this money from, because you're not taking any of our money. So there's a lot to be figured out here. But I think if they left that out, the problem with leaving that out is that that's a huge part of the money, right? And so I get it, but to have pointed legislation over a conference that has $1 billion fees, but they start with a B, television money, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But again, I think it over and that part of it overrides, what I think can be good in the bill. The other part of I don't know why they did this, and God knows, Ted Cruz has been asked this, and he has said that there's a part in this that's called, unofficially, it's called the Lane Kiffin provision. Okay, there's no Lane Kiffin wording in the bill, but the Lane Kiffin.
Okay.
The idea of what to do with coaches. Okay, and they've literally put this in the legislation that you cannot take a job at another school until the end of your season, and that includes postseason.
Okay.
And they've called it the Lane Kiffin provision. That really ticks. I'm just, as a journalist, to me, that really ticks me off, because I'm not here to be the advocate for Lane Kiffin.
Right.
But John Summerall did the exact same thing at Tulane. Now, he did it in a more adult manner than Lane Kiffin did by leaving Tulane to go to Florida. But everybody knew when Tulane was playing that playoff game at Vaught Hemingway Stadium at Ole Miss that John Summerall was going to be the Florida head coach the minute that Tulane loses a football game, their next football game. He did it in a more polite, adult way. But Bob Chesney did the same thing over at James Madison. They knew when James Madison lost the next football game in the college football playoff that he was going to be the UCLA head football coach.
Mm-hmm.
The two problems I have with that is that there is not another private entity in the United States of America where they have said you can't take a job until this certain day.
Right.
Imagine you and I have a window of which we can take jobs, and the federal government says, okay, that window has now closed. Right. We have a 2-month period that we can take a job.
Yeah.
That would never fly. I don't understand how, in terms of employee law, how that could ever fly. I don't know why they would put that in there, other than they saw what happened with Kiffin and LSU and Ole Miss, and they didn't like it. They didn't, and administrators didn't like it. Okay, fine. I can understand that. The problem, Larry, I have on the other side is that there still isn't a provision. Why did the whole thing with Lane Kiffin happen? Why did the thing with John Summerall happen? Why did the thing with Bob Chesney happen? Because those coaches that they were replacing got fired mid-season. Mm-hmm. Okay? There's no provision in there that says the university administrators and the athletic departments can't fire coaches still mid-season. They can still do that. But if you're fired mid-season, you can't take a job until that again until that,
Right.
team season is done.
Yeah.
You can't do what James Franklin did, where he was fired at Penn State, and before the end of that season, he had a job again at Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And to tell James Franklin, okay, I've been fired mid-season, but I can't actively go find another job for another 3 months.
Yeah.
And they point to like the way that the NFL does things. That's all fine and good. And if you want to sit down with athletes.org and pump out a collective bargaining agreement like the NFL and the NBA do, that's all fine and good. But if you're going to put federal legislation on the board, you better make it so that, like, if you leave, if you are running a restaurant and you leave that restaurant and you want to go somewhere else, like to another city, you better put it in that legislation that restaurateur cannot leave for another 2 months.
Right.
Like the idea that this is the same profession as everybody else, even though they make 7 figures. Like, that's the thing that I think, that's the part where you just scratch your head and go, why did you guys put this in? Because that can't pass. That nobody is going to be for this. The coaches aren't going to be for it. The administrations aren't going to be for it, because I'm sure the administrations are like, okay, we can still fire people mid-season when we want to. That's all fine and good, but we can't find a coach. We can't technically hire a coach until January 9th.
Yeah.
That doesn't, everybody understands the way that college football player acquisition works. If you wait until January 9th, you're gone. Your next season is done.
Yeah.
Like, so,
I think
it doesn't make any sense with the calendar.
Yeah.
But but again, I want to point out there's a lot of parts of this that I think makes a lot of sense, that if they'd have gotten specific and said, we want to fix this.
Yeah.
Like the calendar, and like having the season end on January 9th is something that I think works out well. It's just an example of, okay, cool, that's great. That would have worked out, but you didn't need federal legislation to do that. You could have solved your own problem on that one too.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we got to leave it there. We're over time, unfortunately. Matt, you going through everything. Great stuff. Appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Not a problem.
Okay, Matt Stevens joining us. We're on a tight break for all of our affiliates. We'll be back with more after this.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
Okay, let's get back to Game 7, San Antonio at Oklahoma City. And, producer Tony, we were talking again, before that we felt going in, these are the best two teams in the playoffs. Look, the Knicks have certainly made they've done enough to say, hold my beer. Hello, include us in the conversation. And rightly so. But I think if we said before, if you said back in March that these two teams are going to go to 7 games to decide the Western Conference champion, we would not have been surprised.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and the games have been so intense, so combative, so interesting, different angles from the Thunder bench doing really well. SGA comes through, but he's had his struggles. Wemby comes through, but he's had his struggles. Chet Holmgren's been the disappearing 7'3" man, and Isaiah Hartenstein hitting shots you don't expect. And it's just, there's been all kinds of drama going on with this series. And, like we pointed out in those stats, it really probably will come down to which superstar puts the team on their back in this Game 7. Does Wemby find a way to have another 30-20 ball game and carry the Spurs? Or does SGA break out and have like a 35-point game where he's hitting every shot possible and making, getting people open for their threes so that they can hit threes, guys like McCain and Caruso by his driving and having people collapse on him the way the Spurs have been. So it is going to be an interesting Game 7 for sure. And I would like to see it. Larry, we've texted about this, but man, they're taking part of the beauty out of this series because it's too physical.
Yeah.
When you're allowing players to grab the jersey of the other team, that's a foul. I don't care what league you're in, all the way down to Pee Wee. Yeah. That's a foul. Call it, guys. Call that.
Yeah, and call it early and set the tone.
Right.
Don't let a game of this magnitude and I agree with you. A beautiful matchup. It truly is. It is one that you and I have watched thousands of games between the two of us, right? I mean, personally and professionally, and this is one of those that there are a few that stand out. I mean, where you were when that game happened. This has a chance to be one of those games that, I'm already planning on, not just sitting down and watching, but hey, is there a friend I want to watch the game with? Is there, someplace I want to go to watch the game? And this is one of those games that's going to be epic because, like you said, there's a chance that these two teams, it looks like probably if they stay on this path, are going to be the teams, as we've talked about before, for the next decade. And it all starts right here with this Game 7.
Yeah, this is the equivalent of Celtics Lakers from the 80s or Bulls Pistons from the late 80s, early 90s, that kind of thing. That's where this rivalry is headed. And you just want it to see played in the best way possible so all the athletes can show exactly what they can do. And I get it. You want it to be more than just offense to see who can outscore each other. But there's ways to play defense without grabbing, without clutching, without, throwing shoulder blocks at people. I mean, geez, we had one play last night where there were like 4 guys wound up on the floor and no whistles. Right. How do 4 people hit the floor in a basketball game and there's not a single foul? Right. But everybody tripped over their shoelaces? Come on.
Right. Exactly. Call something, clean it up. And I love, too, that you've got a couple of young coaches going at this. Obviously, Dagnall trying to win his second, but Johnson trying to win his first with the Spurs. Disciple of Greg Popovich, so there's that lineage there. But also the young players. SGA, 27, a little older, already with 2 MVPs. But Victor Wembanyama, only 22 years old. I mean, it is just not only 2 premier franchises, but 2 superstar players going head-to-head. Like you said, this is a lot like, we've talked before, almost like a Dr. J and Larry Bird in the 80s kind of thing. Or you've got, Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon against Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lakers. I mean, it's that kind of power that can be going at each other for several years, not just for a couple of years, but for several years.
Yeah, and the Knicks are sitting back there on the East Coast. They've got handfuls of popcorn just watching this go down, popcorn and their favorite beverage going, yeah, hit him harder. Sure. Leave that bruise. Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Whoever we play is going to have a few extra bruises because of all this. Go ahead. Keep beating each other up. That's fine. Keep doing that. We're resting. We're good over here. Popcorn tastes great. Just let us know who wins and we'll meet you somewhere and we'll have the finals.
That's right. By the way, Game 1 is on ABC starting Wednesday night. I want to give a shout out to Mike Tirico, Reggie Miller, and Jamal Crawford. First year those 3 have been together. And I don't know, you and I appreciate this. I don't know if everyone understands the beauty of having a professional broadcast team going at it. And they've just made each game fantastic, their call.
Yeah, they've been wonderful. I love Reggie's insight. I love Jamal Crawford's insight. And I love the fact that they disagree with each other occasionally. They're going, what are you looking at, dude? Yeah. How did you not see this or that? And it really helps, give you an insight into the game that you can't get anywhere else. Love it.
Agree. Yeah, kudos for them. Year 1 with NBC doing that. Yeah, no question about that. Hey, we got to run. Appreciate our guests. Enjoy the weekend. And we'll see you in June here on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? they actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.